Good morning, Kat. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for this interview for the Congo Square Connection website. You are a dancer, choreographer. You work in films. You're a member of a band, Bambula 2000. You are also at the university level now as an educator, and you continue to work with children in K through 12th grades. How do you describe or define yourself and the work that you do in the community? Tell us about that as well.
Okay. I describe myself as a dance educator, but I also as a cultural bearer. I want to focus on African diaspora as it relates to New Orleans specifically, which of course is a wide range because there are so many different dance styles that are still being promoted that were retention of those dance styles are still here as they came through both the Atlantic slave trade and as it came through I guess migrations like with the Haiti migration and everything. So, New Orleans is a hub for different dance styles that came here, but also that evolved out of that. So my work is about the study of those dance forms, both in their traditional format and in its evolution. As a dance educator, I want to be sure that that information is kept and passed on for the next generations as they're coming up. So my work in the community is twofold. It's one, highlighting those artists here in the city that are doing the work, and then also creating a space for the upcoming generations to learn that information, even if they it's just for knowledge sake, because we have a lot of dance fusion going on, a lot of different dance styles that are evolving. But I think it's always important to understand and know the roots of movements, the roots of our culture. So that's where I kind of live in that area of understanding our past as we create a new future for ourselves. And so,
And you promote a lot of those dance styles as well as encourage a lot of young dancers through your festival, which has really grown over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about
oh, I'm
that?
so excited about that. We are going to be 5 years strong in 2023. It'll be our fifth anniversary. And yeah, it's called Cultural Ties Dance Festival. It's not just about the dance, but because being a dancer myself, I really feel the importance of that. But as you know, dance and music go hand in hand for the cultural, for the African community, the African American community, just the African diaspora. So it's called the Culture Ties Dance Festival, but it includes not only the dance, but also the music and then the history and lineage of our culture. And through that festival, I highlight the actual teachers that are here in New Orleans. We do bring in other teachers from other places from time to time, but my particular goal as we do all these festivals in New Orleans, we bring a lot of people in the city, for Jazz Fest and all that. We highlight people outside of New Orleans and bring them into the city. And so that's great. That's because we appreciate all those who come here, to celebrate with us. But I wanted to do something that highlighted the local artists first, and then we can also celebrate other artists who come in to work with us during the festival. Because I just think it's important to know that so many years removed, that so many different artists are here practicing on a daily basis throughout the year, just doing the work. As
Yes,
with Cultural Ties Festival, it's about celebrating those local artists here in the city.
I agree. And you mentioned one of your aspects of the festival is history. So, how does the history of Congo Square and the legacy of Congo Square relate to the work that you do throughout the year as well as during that festival?
So, Congo Square is like an anchor to everything that we do because we recognize it as being the space that holds all of the information, all of the celebrations, everything that happened throughout the years. At some point, it has coming through Congo Square. We celebrate both the negative and the positive of our culture, right? And so everything that we've done is coming from a place of not just celebration, but also pain, and we're celebrating through the pain. Congo Square is that space that through some of the hardest times in our culture, they found a way to release distress, find joy, celebrate in this space. We know that originally our descendants weren't able to just do what they naturally would do, whether it's dance, celebration, worship, through anywhere. They were sanctioned and put in different spaces in order to do that freely. But Congo Square became the space that was known for that type of whether they had marketplace, drum and dance, and whatever celebrations they had. We can find some type of historical, just I guess identification with Congo Square. So for me, that begins our space, the space itself. If you ever been there, for people who've gone there, they feel a certain type of energy. It's a very calming space. It just begins the process of understanding. And you need that anchor. And that's what Congo Square is for me, knowing that we're going to study so much history, but to have a space we can identify as, okay, let's start here. Congo Square is that jumping space. Yes. But it's also returning space. So like with Cultural Ties, we end our celebration in Congo Square because we want to remember that this is ours, collectively, this is our space, even with all of the different identities that came through there, all of the different tribes, all of the different cultures that came through there. We want to be able to return back in celebration of that. Because this is how we got through by having the music, having dance, having fellowship, one way or the other. This is how we were able to make it through those hard times. And we're thankful for those who had the strength, because we wouldn't be here without that. So we celebrate it, and we honor that in so many ways. Yeah.
Yes, and one way that you honor it is by not just returning, but when you do return, I've seen you engage the audience, really bring people up who just came to observe or look or visit, but you bring them up and you make them a part of the event, part of the activity. And that
goes back to the fact that I really do believe with all my heart that dance is healing. I believe that it's a way of not only expressing ourselves, but of healing ourselves. And I think that movement in itself brings about a certain joy. And when I'm dancing, I can start dancing and feel like the world is on me. But once I start moving and hearing the drums, it brings a certain joy. And I just want to include everyone around me when I do that. So I get excited when they're around. So I want everybody to be as happy as I am through movement, so yeah.
Wonderful. You mentioned the title of your festival as Cultural Ties. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the title of this website, which is Congo Square Connections. Mm-hmm. And you see that in your workshops, which you're showing in your festivals, the connections that we have. What connections come to your mind when you think about Congo Square and New Orleans cultural practices, as well as those that you have studied? I know that you studied internationally and that you have observed internationally.
I think the funniest part about connections is when you don't realize you have an aha moment. We went to Haiti and I brought my daughter with me. And at the time, she may have been like 8 or 9. About 8 or 9. And so we do a dance called Kalinda here. And I learned that dance through Kumbuka, African Drum and Dance Collective, and performed it with that company. And, as we're doing the dance, you know where you learned it from, the source, but of course I learned it in the States. And so going to Haiti, we were running some steps across the floor, and we were learning the dance, was what I found out later was called Congo in Haiti. But it was so familiar. The steps were so familiar, and my daughter knew the steps, and the instructor was like, how does she know that? How does she know that? I said, well, in New Orleans, we called it Kalinda. I was like, the steps were so familiar, but we do it, I guess, so freely, and we know where the roots are, but to know that it's still practiced there, and that and it's just it's the same movements or the same energy, just by another name. I realize how connected we are. That's their daily practice. This is our daily practice, but it's so familiar. And that's the best word I can say, is it's so familiar. The whole time we were in Haiti, it was so familiar. We saw the streets that looked like New Orleans, down in the French Quarters. Everything about Haiti was so familiar, and it felt like home, just like New Orleans feels like home. Mm-hmm. So that connection to other cultures, knowing that at some point we are all connected through ancestral, cultural practice. That's what I think is the most important thing, is understanding that we are connected, appreciating and honoring everyone's practices, and continuing to learn and share with that. We're going to Cameroon, prayerfully, in January, where we're going to do another cultural exchange. They're studying New Orleans culture and music and dance. And so we're going there. Cultural Ties Dance Festival is going there to provide movement exchange based on Congo Square. So, there's so much that came out of that. We can find semblance of jazz movement, social dance of the African Americans, or the Africans, indigenous people of that time, are the roots of jazz movement, jazz dance in this traditional form. Now, of course, we've moved beyond that now, but when we study the origins of things, there are a lot of times we can trace it back to African movement. And so as we go to Cameroon to do a cultural exchange about Congo Square, we're also going to have opportunities to study there too, the traditional dances of that time. But it's about making those connections. Again, we're going to work with school kids, and we just want to. I don't want it to be lost on our youth that what we see is limited to what we see. We want to be able to give them a vision. That you can only dream and grow as far as your vision, but if we have limited vision, then it's only so far that you're going to actually bloom out to, right? And so for me, is to be able to provide opportunities for the New Orleans youth to have vision, to be able to see that beyond New Orleans streets, there's so much more. We are rich right here, but we want to be able to expand, and know that we're connected in so many ways, that we're so much more than what we can see sometimes. And we need to be able to be introduced to all of these different things to say, hey, this is how I'm rich, and I want to share my richness with you. And we can only grow from that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd like to say we want to give them a global perspective.
Yes.
And also a global perspective of Congo Square, because so many people think that it's just a location or it happened back then, but those influences continue today in our streets. So thank you so much for what you do. This is wonderful. It's great talking to you, and continue the great work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.